There's a version of you the narcissist never prepared for, the one who stopped waiting for an apology, the one who stopped rehearsing conversations in their head, stopped replaying arguments trying to find where they went wrong, stopped twisting themselves into knots trying to be understood by someone who was never going to try. The narcissist studied you. They learned your patterns, your soft spots, the exact tone of voice that would make you doubt yourself. They built an entire strategy around the belief that you would always come back, and for a long time they were right. But there is a point. And if you've reached it, you already know exactly what I'm talking about, where something inside you goes quiet, not defeated, not numb, quiet in the way that a decision feels when it's already been made. That's the moment the narcissist cannot recover from, and today, we're going to talk about why. Empaths don't leave easily, and that's not a weakness. It's the very thing that makes their departure so devastating. People who lead with empathy tend to stay longer than they should. They look for context. They ask, what happened to them? What are they going through? What did I do that made this worse? They extend grace so consistently that the narcissist comes to depend on it the way someone depends on oxygen. Dr. Gabor Mate has written extensively about how early relational trauma shapes people into caretakers. Individuals who learned, often in childhood, that love was something you earned through self-erasure. So when the empath in this relationship keeps showing up, keeps forgiving, keeps trying to fix something that was never theirs to fix, it's not naivety. It's a deeply wired pattern of connection. But that same depth of wiring means that when the pattern finally breaks, it breaks completely. The narcissist spent years testing how much you could take. What they didn't account for was what happens when you find out. Psychological research on what's sometimes called empathic collapse describes a real shift that occurs in people who have been chronically overextended in their care for others. It's not a breakdown, it's closer to the opposite. A sudden, almost molecular clarity about where you end and another person begins. Trauma therapists describe it as the moment the nervous system stops bracing and starts protecting. You've been in a low-grade state of alert for so long, reading the room, managing their moods, anticipating the next eruption, that your body and mind have been running on emergency power. And then something happens. Sometimes it's a single sentence. Sometimes it's a moment of seeing them clearly without the fog of hope. And the alarm just stops. Not because you stopped caring about people, because you started caring about yourself in a way that left no room for the old dynamic. You're not angry in the way they expected. You're done in a way they've never seen, and that terrifies them. The narcissist's first instinct when they sense real loss is to reach for every tool that worked before. They know your archive. They know which apology made you cry, which version of vulnerability made you lean back in, which version of cruelty made you work harder to earn their warmth. So they'll try the apology, maybe grand, maybe quiet, calibrated to what moved you in the past. When that doesn't land, they'll try the guilt. They'll remind you of everything they gave, everything they sacrificed, how no one else will ever understand you like they do. When the guilt doesn't catch, they'll try anger, because anger sometimes shocks people back into a defensive, appeasing posture. And when none of it works, there's a moment. You may have seen it on their face, where something flickers, something almost like fear. Because for the first time, they're running the playbook, and nothing is happening. You're not reacting. You're not re-engaging. You're just gone. Still physically present, maybe, but gone in the way that matters. And that is a loss they are genuinely not equipped to process. Here's what the narcissist will never say out loud, but knows somewhere beneath all the bravado. They needed you more than you needed them. Not in the way healthy people need each other, in mutual, reciprocal ways. They needed you the way a performance needs an audience. Your empathy, your patience, your willingness to keep trying. That was the mirror that told them they were real, that they mattered, that they had power. Carl Jung observed that what we cannot face in ourselves, we project outward and seek to control in others. The The narcissist projected their need for worth onto you, and then worked constantly to ensure you remained in a position of doubt because a doubting empath keeps reaching. A healed empath walks away, and without that mirror, the narcissist is left with themselves, which is precisely the confrontation they have organized their entire personality around avoiding. They won't heal from it, the way you will. They'll find another mirror, but it won't be you. And somewhere, they know that whatever they had with you, even in the distorted form they allowed it to take, is not something they'll find again. Enough is not a moment of anger. People sometimes imagine that the breaking point looks like a fight, like a dramatic exit, like finally saying every true thing you've swallowed for months. Sometimes it does look like that, but more often, the real enough is quieter. It's standing in an ordinary moment and realizing you're not afraid anymore. Not of their reaction, not of their opinion, not of being alone, not of the story they'll tell about you when you're gone. Psychologists who work with survivors of narcissistic relationships talk about a concept called radical acceptance. Not acceptance of what was done to you, but acceptance of what a person truly is, without the hope that they'll become something different. That acceptance is the foundation of real freedom. You're allowed to reach it. You're allowed to stop explaining yourself. You're allowed to let silence be your answer. You're not too sensitive. You were not too much. You were, in fact, exactly the kind of person who deserved someone capable of meeting you there. And the only mistake you made was spending so long trying to build that capacity in someone who had decided long ago that they wouldn't. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you finally started. Started caring for yourself with the same fierce, patient, inexhaustible love you spent years pouring into someone who treated it like a resource to manage rather than a gift to receive. That is the thing the narcissist cannot recover from. Not your absence exactly. The fact that your absence is peaceful. The fact that you're not waiting by the phone, not hoping they'll finally get it, not lying awake running the relationship through your mind, looking for the version where it works. You're rebuilding, slowly, maybe, on some days messily, but in a direction that is entirely, finally yours. And if you're somewhere in the middle of that process right now, still tender, still figuring out who you are outside of that relationship, I want you to know that what you're doing takes enormous courage. Choosing yourself after so long, choosing someone else, is not selfish. It's survival. And it is the beginning of something the narcissist will never understand because it requires exactly what they've always refused to offer, the willingness to be honest about who you really are.